In this video, I'm going to show you how to submit an HTA-B form online using PatientPath. When you log in, you'll land on this window. It's called the dashboard, and the first thing that you need to do to start submitting a form is click this button up here that says New HTA-B Form. Click that button and a new form will load. As I work my way through the form, I'll do my best to point out any features or tips and tricks. It's just a case of entering information as you work through the form. This field here is a date picker, which most people are familiar with, helps you pick a date easily, but you can always just enter the information manually. This field is called a lookup, and I'll talk about lookups a little bit more in a minute. But to open a lookup and make it act like a drop-down menu, click the magnifying glass and it will give you the options to select. You can see here another feature of this form, which is that fields are only shown to you if you need to complete them. In this scenario that I'm following through, it was a UK removal, so if I enter that, these additional fields disappear. Donating hospital is just a free text field, you can just enter it here. Okay, so here we've got another lookup for receiving transplant centre. One of the restrictions with a lookup is that it can only show you 10 results at a time, and there are more than 10 transplanting centres in the UK. But another thing that a lookup can do is that you can just search in it, and we always recommend you put a star either side of your search in PatientPath. But if you put a star either side, hit return, it'll do a search for all of the options in that menu and show you the ones that match your search, and then you can just select it using your mouse. Again, you can use the date picker and enter a time. This field here is the name of the person that's responsible for the information on it. Someone else can submit the form if that's what you'd like to do. This is the first place on the form where it differs significantly from the paper form. With the paper form, we required one form per organ. This meant that when you were transplanting a kidney and pancreas together, or were doing an intestinal transplant, you had to complete a lot of HTA-B forms. On the electronic form, you can add more than one organ onto the form if you wish. Click this Add Organ button, the form will save, and I'll be taken to a separate organ form. Again, this organ type is a lookup. I just type my search, I'm looking for kidney in here, hit return, and I'm given the options with my search in. I can just select left kidney. Here's another example of where fields are hidden and shown to you, depending on your response. So if I select severe damage, I get a free text field where I can write the type of damage. And I also get a link to the incident submission form. However, that's a mistake. The damage wasn't severe in this scenario. There was no damage at all. So I want to take that item out of the field. How you do that is you just click in the box. Don't click here on the text, but just click next to it in the box and use your backspace or delete key. And then you can select the item that you do actually want. If your organ came into contact with perfusion fluid, that needs to be added to this form as well. To do that, you click this Add Perfusion Fluid button and a quick form comes up. Select the type of perfusion fluid that you used, enter the batch number and the expiry date. Click Save and the perfusion fluid will be added to the form. The form is different to the paper form in some places. If the organ was machine perfused for the first time, we've got fields to find out a bit more information about that. So if you select yes, there's a large number of fields here about machine perfusion, but you're only showing those if you did use machine perfusion, otherwise you can just not worry about them. We're nearly at the end here. This form has validation, so it checks that the information that you're entering makes sense. Here's an example of a validation failure, and if you hover over the red X, it'll tell you a little bit about why you've had that failure. The reason this has failed is because I said that the organ arrived at the centre at 9, and so this time must be logically after the time the organ arrived at the centre. So if I update that to a time after 9, my validation error disappears. Here you say what happened to the organ. You can say that it was disposed of and give some more information about how it was disposed and why. and if it was transplanted, you just select transplanted and give us the date and time that the organ was reperfused. That's ready to save now. You can see that my perfusion fluid's been added. Now I want to return back to the actual HTA-B form, so I just click Save and Close, and I'll be returned to the original form. Here you can see that the organ that I was just adding has been added onto this form. If I wanted to add another organ, for example a pancreas, I could click Add Organ and add a separate organ. In this scenario, it was only the left kidney that was transplanted. We're nearing the end of the form now. In this section, we're looking for the details of the patient that had the transplant. We need this information so that ODT Hub operations can safely remove your patient from the waiting list. If you didn't accept the organ for a named patient, then all we ask for is the details about the recipient. If it was for a named patient, we need to know if that patient had it, and if they didn't, why. However, in this scenario, it was not accepted for a named patient, so I enter the patient details. We're asking for NHS number, which is validated, CHI number in Scotland, or the Northern Ireland ID number. We do appreciate that some patients don't have an ID number, and in those cases you can select this checkbox and tell us why you haven't provided it, but we do need that number wherever possible to safely identify your patient. The form completed by field is filled out automatically by the system on submission, and is the user that clicked the submit button. At this point, I've finished filling out the form. If I like, I can click Save and Close, and that will take me back to the dashboard where I started, but would not submit the form. You can use that button if the form's partially completed and you need a colleague to complete it for you. However, in this case, I'm ready to go. So I just click Submit. The form will save and be validated one more time. If there are any validation errors, you won't see this message. So if you see this message, you know everything's okay with the form. You click OK to complete the submission. And once it's submitted, you'll notice two things have changed. The status reason up here has changed to submitted, and this yellow bar along the bottom here shows that this record is read only. To return back to the dashboard, you click this X here in the top right hand corner. I can click on the Created On column in this grid to show the newest records first, and here you can see the form I've just submitted in the grid.